Hey everybody, this is Brian Beckham, and I have got Pankaj Singh. He goes by Singh. He told me to call him Singh today because his first name is hard for me to pronounce. But I got to tell you, Singh, I am super duper fired up about having a conversation with you today. You are an expert not only in leadership and what I would call kind of modern concepts of leadership. You're also an expert in a topic that is really near and dear to my heart, which is mindfulness and meditation and how those can help you not only in your professional life, but in day-to-day life as well. So thanks for coming on today, Singh. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm passionate about helping leaders align their personal purpose with their professional roles to create more intentional and impactful and fulfilling lives. With one clarity, actually two clarity. The first clarity I would like to make is let's redefine leadership or leader. When I say who is the leader, who this program is for, who this conversation is for, it's for everyone, not just people who manage other people. But I jokingly say, if you are the person deciding who gets the last slice of pizza in the house, you are a leader, right? And
Yeah,
and even if you don't get to do that, think about this. If you are not a leader, who's leading you,
yeah.
right?
Well,
So,
and it's kind of interesting you say that. So let's kind of get right into that.
mhm,
In my mind, mindfulness starts with yourself. Like that is, and some people I think. So I started meditating about 10 years ago.
mhm.
I've gotten really into meditation and mindfulness and how the mind works and things like that. And one of the things that I've learned is, I think there's sometimes kind of an impression that people that are focused too much on their own mind and how it works and meditation are being selfish. But in fact, what you're doing is you're training yourself to be a better father, be a better husband,
Mhm.
be a better friend, be a better community member. Talk a little bit about your background in mindfulness because I find, frankly, I'm a little bit jealous when you were. Yeah, so you were raised in a relatively wealthy Indian family and
Mhm.
you mastered classical music at the age of 13. And then at the age of 14, which I think is super cool, and I want you to talk about this a little bit, your parents actually had you go and study with a lama. So tell everybody, for people that don't know about the Indian tradition, what a lama is and what you did when you trained under this lama as a very young boy.
So just to give you a full picture on that for 2 minutes, yes, I was blessed. People say silver spoon in mouth. I think I would say it was more than silver spoon in mouth. Very blessed with that family. Because of that, my parents were very educated in multiple dimensions. My mother was a sitarist. She used to play another instrument, classical, and she has psychology degree and everything else. My dad was an engineer, top rank, whatever he did. So I say I was blessed because there was always presence of high potential, high drive leaders around me with my dad and my mom. I always have people who had practical knowledge of classical music, and we used to enjoy music as a kid. And because of training in psychology, very early, I think now in US or anywhere else, people term, I'm not even going to use that word because I don't agree with it, for uh, alphabet thing for kids who are too hyper. I was very hyper when I grew up. And that's why I was introduced to percussion so I could get my energy out playing percussion with my hands, which led to my education and everything else at that time. But even after completing postmasters in Indian classic percussion, which means you are playing almost every day for 3 to 4 hours to get to
Wow.
that level, right? And my hyperness was still there. I mean, I was one of those kids that if you would cross me, there's no matter what you do, I'm going to pick a fight with you,
Yeah.
right? And then because of the relationship and the spiritual connections that they have, on that summer between the school year, I was introduced to this Lama. I stayed with him for 2.5 months, and that changed my life. That changed my life, I would say, at a cellular level, because it was the first time after 4 or 5 days there. It was not a full week, but it was good 3, 4 days. I actually tasted what water tastes like, right? I could
Yeah.
actually feel when I breathe where that air is going in and out. I could actually feel the pulse of the heart without putting my hand on the heart, right? And I'm thankful to him. I just showed you his picture. He's in front of me all the time, blessing me in all forms. That became very fundamental and foundational in my life. And then fast forward 10 years from there, I was in corporate America. Right. I got blessed to do engineering in electronics and communication. I did my master's in IT. I did my MBA in finance and HR. And I got into a very true corporate America when I was 24. Things didn't hit me of the practices that I have put in my life on a daily basis till 2020 October. During COVID, I was chief technology officer of a company, a national company here, and we had a full-blown ransomware attack.
Ransomware attack. Yeah.
Mhm. And we came out of it, the team, we collectively came out of that in less than 40 hours without even paying ransom. Yes, we did have support with some of the federal agencies and stuff like that, but also our partners and vendors, they came to the table, right? After that incident, so after December, I got invited in that December to February, I got invited in almost 8, 10 different webinars to talk about, because ransomware is a big thing and very few people actually have the experience to go through it. And even then, there are very little, 1 or 2% who actually come out of that without paying ransomware. Long story short, after the fifth interview, I started thinking something that came very naturally to me, why people are making so big deal of it. How did you plan? How did you react? And then I started looking back in my life. That was not the first incident. I have actually lived my entire life like that, being present in the moment, being calm, not only me being calm, teaching people on a daily basis micro mindful practices. So, for example, I'd start giving now. One of the things I've always done with my team, no matter whether right now in business that I have or previously that I've worked in other places, whenever we start a meeting, I have got a very simple thing. Take 4 deep breaths. We can do it right now, right?
Yeah.
See, that is less than 12 seconds. Even if you take pause between breaths, right? In that 12 seconds, think about the thought that came and the emotion that embodies you and write one question. When we are in a meeting, what is the outcome I want from the meeting? Not the team. Individually, you write, what is the outcome I want from this meeting, right?
Right.
And then we collectively talk for 1 minute and make sure everybody is aligned. More than aligned, it is to bring three people present,
Yeah.
right? What And then it kind of, I went back, reflected on everything. I came up with this 3, 4, 5 different programs and frameworks, but it all boils down to two simple things, right? For people who manage mindfulness or practice mindfulness and people who don't believe in mindfulness. Like I redefined leadership, that you are a leader if you are deciding on the last pie in the house being taken. And if you're not a leader, who is leading you, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, mindful needed a redefinition. It took me I struggled for 6 months in 2023 first half to not use that word and try to teach people, and it would not gain traction. And then I had to go back to the 35, 38 years of my experience and think about how I have trained people daily. Then I created what I call Mindful Leadership Mastery Compass. It's 22-minute exercises, 30-second exercises, 60-second exercises. It brings you right there, right? One of the things I give always is called STOP, STOP. We all drive in US, or if you have kids who are getting licensed, they're always told stop at the stop sign, stop at the red signal, right? Whenever you stop doing anything, I ask you to do one simple thing. Take 2 deep breaths and try to pick the last thought you had. Initially, when you do that, it will be very difficult because that is the problem I'm getting to. Because what we have done is, as humanity, with all this digitization, with all this digital social media and applications and apps, we have put not only our brain on autopilot, but we have put our brain on autopilot with the feeling of fight and flight. Right? Think about this. If there is a survival necessity, our brain by default activates amygdala. That is our fight and flight mode. The moment it is like a alarm bell that stop everything and save your life kind of deal, right? The moment you do that, your rest of the body stops doing anything because the body gets into the mode of conserving every ounce of energy to fight that survival mode. And then on top of that, you are on autopilot. So you are on autopilot defending yourself all day long.
Yeah.
And the result of that, think about the result of that. The result of that is chaos, lack of clarity. When it comes to leadership, a recent study done in almost three different continents showed that, and this was about 10,000 some companies, 80% of leaders, when they come in the meeting, the first 10 minutes, they are not present mentally. So these exercises, when I ask you to stop and you forced yourself to go and try to pick a thought, you activated your prefrontal cortex, which is your logical brain. The moment you activate that, your amygdala stops, which means your body now starts getting resources. This is the reason why people are always tired, always fatigued, always sad, because they are running their life on autopilot and they're running their life in fight and flight mode. There's no bomb coming here. Nobody's going to kill you. Just relax, just chill. Just take that break. The
Yeah.
second problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Let me stop you right there because I'll tell you a personal story for me. So when I first started meditating, this was probably about 10 years ago. The first thing I noticed, I started meditating because I was having panic attacks. And I've talked about this publicly, and I didn't really know what to do about it. I found meditation. In fact, what I did was I found a book called 10% Happier by an NBC newscaster. You probably heard of him. Yeah, he had a panic attack on air, talks about meditation. I got so lucky to find that at the time. But I'll tell you what I found, saying the first time I meditated for 5 minutes, it was excruciating. It felt like forever. It felt like my brain was working against me. It felt like there's this notion, I think, that when you meditate, your thoughts stop, and that's not true at all. At all. In fact, if you try to do that, they get worse, right? And it was not comfortable. I got to be honest with you. At first, it was not comfortable. But what I found when I started meditating was not that the thoughts stopped, not that I could quote control my thoughts, but that I had a little bit of distance, a little bit of perspective about what thoughts really are and what thoughts are not you. Like, I think the problem with people that don't meditate, people that get caught in this monkey brain, is that they identify with their thoughts. They think their thoughts are them. And like you're saying, especially nowadays in modern times, this is the way I look at what you just said, Singh. There's two different ways of kind of being in the world. There's getting information into your mind and having information come out of your mind. And nowadays we're in a stage of humanity, like you said, with all the screens, with all the digital stuff, where 99% of the time the inputs are coming into our brain. We never have time to rest, to relax. I actually have a practice that I try to do every morning where I go outside first thing with a cup of coffee, and that's it. No phone, no screens. And I just sit there for 10 minutes and just let the thoughts come, let the thoughts go. And that is so valuable. It doesn't sound like that big a deal, but that sets the tone for my entire day. So I can go from being, like you said, automatic responses, fight or flight responses, to having a little bit of distance between that and being a little bit more intentional about what I focus my attention on.
That's exactly where I'm going. So the first time, a lot of people, when I tell them what to do the first time, right? So this is a couple of things I say. If you, so first of all, mindfulness, let's define what mindfulness is. To your point, mindfulness is not to stop your thoughts. Absolutely not. Because your brain has got the power that it is running 24/7, right? I'll get little philosophical and little scientific here. We have five senses or 12 senses, depending on which science path you think about. Five physical senses, but then there are other seven non-physical senses that the brain registers. Now, what's happened? Think about this. Brain is collecting information. Let's stay with the five senses, like smell, breath, sound, touch, and sight. The brain is picking up every single information and capturing and processing and capturing and processing 24/7. So mind is already full. Brain is capturing so much information that we are not even capable of tapping into it. What mindfulness means is appreciating that your mind is full, becoming the observer of the amount of information that is coming to your brain, right? So this is a couple of very simple exercises I've done with people in person, driving with someone for long distance for the first time in a meeting, and said, okay, you want to try that, do this. I'll just play a very simple tune, close your eyes. And I'm not asking you to stop thinking. I want you to I want you to register everything that you're thinking in next 3 minutes. In 3 minutes, I have them open their eyes. First respond, sing. Oh my God, I am so loud inside.
I know what that feels like.
Right.
Isn't
So,
that funny? Everybody has the same initial reaction. Yeah. You
right.
can't believe. I mean, I remember thinking, golly, my mind won't shut up.
Mhm. And when I talk about mindfulness and practice for leaders, for God's sake, I'm not talking about pulling a yoga mat and twisting your body in 200 different ways. I'm not asking you to go
Right.
to retreat. All I'm
Right.
asking is, can you take 4 deep breaths? Let's start there. Why? If you focus your attention on your deep breathing, 4 box breathing, 4 count of in, 4 hold, 4 exhale, and 4 hold. Do it 4 times. What we are doing. So I was talking to Graham and Kevin on Next on a Day's podcast, and he was laughing. What he said was, I have found a sneaky way of getting into people. But why I had to do this? The digital experience that we have for last 10 years, I don't know if you know or not, but on an average, our span of focus has got down to 12 seconds.
Yeah.
So and that's where I told you in 2023, I was struggling and I had to come up with this micro practices, because when I understood that a normal person, an average person has only focus for 12 seconds, how can I give somebody to cut that in 10 or 14 seconds?
Yeah.
That's where this 4 deep breaths comes in. To your point, another problem that we have, and we have done this to humanity, we have broken the cyclicality of universe, and we are paying for it.
Yeah.
You just said when you wake up, you go out, don't use the phone, don't do this. You just let your brain do what it is doing, get back. If you look at the mechanics of how this beautiful human engineered body is, the moment sun starts setting, the brain starts excreting melatonin and gets you ready to sleep. Why? Because it wants to regenerate all your dead cells,
Yeah.
right? And right before sunrise, there's another chemical excreted in your brain that is getting you ready with all the benefits of regenerated cells. What we have done as humans, having that blue light right this all 24/7, we think that, okay, the moment I turn off my iPad, turn off my phone, I'll close eyes and see and sleep. No. Till you have that thing in front of you, the blue light indicates the brain it is still sunrise,
Yeah.
right? Scientifically, what normally should take your brain 4 hours between 6 and 10 to process melatonin for you to get a deep sleep so that the brain can work on your body to regenerate. You set the brain till 10 p.m., till 1 p.m., till 2 a.m., right? That no, I'm still sunrise. So if you sleep at 1 a.m., it takes 4 hours for your brain to start getting into your deep sleep. And then you have your phone buzzing at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
So your body needs that 6 to 8 hours of fixing. We have broken that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's like if you spend all of your time getting input into your brain,
Yep.
you don't have any time for your brain to actually do what's designed to do. Like people talk all the time about, oh, I get great ideas when I'm walking or when I'm driving or when I'm in the shower. And the reason for that is because when you're driving or walking or in the shower, you're not actually looking at a screen. Like your brain is actually working in the background all the time, and you actually this is a phrase I've just kind of come up with just now. You give your brain a chance to breathe. You give your
Breathe. Yep.
brain some
Awesome.
space, right?
I'm going
And
to use that.
yeah, and I'll tell you the other thing that I've realized probably within the last year or so, I've been really, really guarded about and really, really paid a lot of attention to where I focus my attention. You only have a limited amount of energy and attention to spend every single day. And the problem we have nowadays is our attention is being directed by people other than us. Like
Yep.
other people are telling us, look over here at this political thing, look here at this real dramatic thing online. And so, like you said, your brain is constantly in a fight or flight mode. So tell us, how do we kind of break that cycle?
Absolutely. So first of all, I'll give a bigger picture, then I'll get into the very minute things that people can start using like this, right? I already gave the stop. Think about that stop all the time. Now, and this is not me, this I've learned this of somebody else. You take your 24 hours and you break that into 8 hours, 3 segments, right? 1 8 hour segment has to be just for hard work, no matter what your profession is. You're pouring it 8 hours just for hard work. And then you have to figure out 8 hours to sleep
Yeah,
because your body has to regenerate. Now, the rest of that you divide into three equal parts. I call 3F, 3H, and 3S. Okay. The 3F is faith, friend, and family, right? No matter who you are, you have to have some kind of faith, even if that faith is electricity, even if that
yeah,
faith is water, right? It's not,
yeah.
I'm not saying to get spiritual. You have to have some faith in something for your soul to be alive, right? The next three are going to be 3H, health, hygiene, and hobby, right? And then the last three are 3S, soul, service, and smile,
Nice,
right?
nice.
Now, how do you do that? So there is a framework, I say compass, COMPAS. To your point, we are not living alone in this universe. We are living with our friends, family. Whether you like it or not, whether you hate your environment, whatever you want to do, you have to get 7 people around you. Or maybe one person playing multiple roles, but 7 roles around you. The first one, clarity partners. People who can help you see the truth and maintain your perspective. People who can give you honest feedback. People who can more like reality check than critical thinking,
Yeah,
right? The second is your opportunity advocates. So opportunity advocates are people who champion your growth and connect you to possibilities, right? So your network that you have, your opportunity identifying advocacy groups that you have, who can show you, hey, do this, talk to them, whatever. Then you have your mentors, of course, share wisdom and the experience. You have your pillars, provide stability and emotional support. You have accountability allies, right? People who can hold you accountable to make sure you're committed to your values. And then soulful connections and strength amplifiers. Now, here's the trick. When you think about mentors, opportunity advocates, and accountability allies, it can be one person.
yeah, I'm
right?
thinking about my wife right now.
And I
Like,
always, whenever, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, whenever I do this, there are three people who comes to mind. My wife, as my strength amplifier, my soul connection. Believe it or not, she's also my accountability ally,
Yeah, mine too.
right? And then
Yeah,
I'm just blessed to have mentors around me that have always shown me every time I'm stuck on that, they're like, "Oh, you're not supposed to do this."
yeah,
So anyway, so one is having the right set of people around you to make sure that you are not alone. That's one part of it. The second part is you don't have to change your entire life in a fraction of second, right? So the framework I always talk about is progress, purpose, reflection, and organizing. Those are the three critical things. Then once you find your purpose in life, what is purpose? What is the best that you have that you can give to others to help,
yeah,
right? What is your purpose? Purpose, when we have a purpose assessment test now, purpose factor assessment. When people take purpose factors, I had two sessions today on that. When people do that, my first thing is this is not something that is going to change your life tomorrow. This is something that is going to identify the things that fulfills you and the things that frustrates you and what are your blind spots.
yeah,
When we reflect back on those and say, okay, what am I doing that fulfills me the most every day? What I am doing that frustrates me most every day? Then you organize saying that, okay, for me, I'll tell you, I'm not someone who would sit down and do coding and design website and create this and create that. I can come up with all these ideas, but I get frustrated. So I have to have a team who I can very easily articulate what I want. They get things done. I'm not frustrated. I'm spending my more time on fulfilling activities than frustrating activities.
yeah. You
And
know,
that's where, yeah, good.
it's interesting you'd say this thing because, I've been thinking for a very long time about, especially with three kids, what is the purpose of life? Everybody's like, what's the purpose of life? And I tell you, I don't know the answer to that question, but I think getting the most out of whatever God-given talents you have,
Mhm.
making a positive impact on the world is a pretty good start. That's a pretty good compass. So for me, for example, talking to people like you on this podcast gives me energy. And when you meditate, I think one of the things you discover is, or one of the things you become more clear on is, what is it that how your energy works, like how your energy flows. And so
Mhm.
you can identify more easily the activities that you do in your life which create energy and the activities which take away from that energy. So I love what you're saying about that right there. I try as hard as I can to maximize talking to people like you, talking to my clients in my private law
Mhm.
firm. I'll tell you the other thing that I tell people is helping other people creates energy. And even if you're a selfish person, helping other people makes you feel good. And so, uh, but the point is I think you have to be mindful enough to recognize what's taking away your energy and what's not. What I've found saying is if I don't meditate for a while, I start losing my attention and my focus on the
Mhm.
things that are really important. Like you said, my brain just starts going into this auto mode and I kind of forget, hey, this is something that really you need to spend less time doing. You need to put your attention away from the internet and put it on this hardback book that you're reading. But again, without taking that pause, and
Mhm.
you can call it meditation, you can call it prayer, you can call it silent reflection,
Mhm.
you can call it all these things. But if you don't take a little bit of time every day to take that pause, you are not going to be directing your own life. Somebody else is, right?
Absolutely. So you said one word, pause, a few times in this statement that you made. That is actually a framework I teach people.
Nice.
So one of the major problem that we have is the digital intoxication that we have in two
Yeah.
different ways. One is I already said that, our span of focus has come down to 12 seconds and we just want to scroll and see the next big thing. We don't know the background of the context of what we saw. We just saw what somebody wanted us to see. You just said that earlier. Now, here's a problem or a challenge that I give people. No matter who you are, no matter what your job is, right? Almost everyone today has a smartphone.
Yeah.
Almost everyone. So my challenge when I get people onboarded in my programs, the first thing is I have them go through purpose assessment. And I would love to share that with you and get your feedback on the assessment too. It's a really brilliant thing.
Please.
Then I give them 3 very simple practices for 2 weeks. Right? Just stay with me. I told 12 seconds of breathing, 4 deep breaths. So the way I tell professional people or even mothers, people who are taking care of the house, even if you're not doing anything, put a random 6 alarms on your phone. No matter what you're doing at that time. When the alarm goes off, I want you to take that 4 deep breath and write one small statement. No novel, no history, no activity that, no, I don't want you to write what I was doing, this, that. No, no. I just want you to write one simple statement of 6 to 10 words. No novel. Now, I want you to do 6 times a day and 6 days. Now, this is the scientific thing behind it. And that's what I was struggling to get these things in very micro practices. When we do meditation with Lama and stuff like that, you're just sitting there and you get to these things. But anyway, 7th day is where you get the aha moment. How? I sit down with them one-on-one and I go through each of the statements that they have written. Number one reaction that I have from people, I had no idea I was thinking about that.
That's amazing. It's your own mind, and you didn't realize how much time you were spending on that, right?
Right. Because I go through the 36 and put them into categories. What is this? What is this? It
Yeah.
takes 5 to 10 minutes with them. And the second biggest thing, people identify their fears that they're living in.
Yeah.
And the response comes, oh, I didn't mean that. I said, you wrote that. So what this exercise does, Brian, is it trains people to become observer.
Yeah.
And when you become observer is the magic of present power.
Yeah.
Right? The moment you do that, you start understanding your emotions. I give my live podcast yesterday was label it or lose it, was just 30 minutes on that. Any
Nice.
emotions that you get, you have to label that emotion.
Yeah.
Right? Scientifically, it's called effect labeling. Because
Yeah.
the moment you label something to your brain, it takes a node and it will never bother you again.
Isn't that amazing how that works? I've tried that. The other thing I've tried is like I'll have a personality in my head, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's bad, Brian." Looking for, it's strange because where I find myself being unmindful, if that's a word, is I'll either one of two things. So I like to read books. I've read books my whole life. I like to read actual physical books. And I found lately, like you said, I'll be reading a book and I'll read an entire page and I'll be like, I literally wasn't paying any attention to what I was reading. And it didn't used to be that way. And the other thing I found saying is I could be like let me give you a perfect example. Last week, I have a house in Colorado. Last week I was up there with my wife and two of my three kids, beautiful mountains, snow. I was absolutely sitting there there was nothing to worry about. But what was my mind doing? My mind was looking for things to worry about. And so there's this part of my brain, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners have this, and
Mhm.
probably a lot of your clients do, where no matter how good things are, your
Mhm.
brain is designed to look for things that might threaten your survival. I mean, this is deeply
So,
evolutionarily rooted, right?
so I'm sorry. So I'll just correct that one thing.
Yeah.
Our mind is not decide. Our mind is not designed to always be in fight and flight mode.
Yeah.
We have allowed our brain, because we are not engaging our frontal cortex, because we are not being present, because we are not engaging our logical part of the brain, right? And because we are in autopilot, the brain amygdala takes over and puts you in
Yeah.
fight and flight mode. So
Yeah.
my point is, respectfully, I'm not saying that you're saying wrong. Yes, you are saying
Yeah.
right thing, that that's what's happening. But what I am trying to get to people is this 1 minute, 30 seconds allows, think about this single thing, right? Let's say I have got entire EEMT resource of a town fighting on something that does not exist,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? No, I'm serious about it. Put it this way. Most of the time, what are the thoughts coming in your head? Number one, experience that you think you had in the past.
Right.
This is very deep. Because even in the past, when that was the in present, you were not present. So you don't know 100% of everything. The
Great point.
scientifically, right? Scientifically, we remember
Yeah.
less than 20% of the things that happened in the moment.
Yeah.
And I challenge people on that because they say, no, I was present. I said, okay, what was the first thing you had? Like, you have coffee. My first question
Yeah.
is, how warm was it?
Yeah.
What did it taste like?
Yeah.
What was the smell around? What were the
Yeah.
sounds in your head? See, so what we are trying to recollect from past is less than 20% of facts,
That's a great point. That's a great point. So not only are we thinking about the past, but we're not even thinking about it accurately. Yeah.
right? And I kid with my clients. I say, see, here's the problem with you guys. You create this big mansion in your head. The problem is when you start living in that mansion, you have to pay rent to a psychologist.
I love it. I love it. That's exactly right. So, but the other part of that is, so
Yeah.
you're either reconstructing
Yes.
part of what happened in the past, or you're thinking about the future, right?
Another big thing. What is future?
Yeah, we don't know. We're like creating a narrative in our head of what it may or may not be like.
Oh my God.
And,
You got on
and I
something so big.
yeah,
Go ahead.
and
Go
I
ahead.
think the
Go ahead.
point of that, I think the point of that is most of our time is spent either recreating something that happened in the past and trying to put some sort of meaning on it, or worrying about what the future holds. And what that means is we're not spending time in the present. We are not present, is what that means.
The big thing. So I shared with you what I do with my clients the first week, right? The first week I give them that exercise. There are a couple of other coaching I do, but that is one mindful exercise I give them. When they come back and we sit down and they say, well, what should I do? I said, okay, here is the training for you. From now on, this moment onwards, and I challenge you to brand, and from this moment onwards, reflect on this different perspective of life. Life is nothing but a sequence of infinite experiments. Experiment. We did an activity, it has got a result. If we like the result, we repeat it. If we don't like, we change. And we continue doing it throughout our life. That's what life
Yeah,
is. The problem is, or I talked about that, we create that mansion in our head. The problem is, even before doing the experiment, we anticipate an outcome of that experiment. And even worse, we get emotionally attached to that.
yeah,
Problem, the experiment is the experience of this moment. You and I talking this intensely, right? Whether
yeah,
people like this or not, if I get my mental barrier to get emotionally connected to whether people will like this or not, whether brand is going to be offended or not, I am going to lose this experience.
yeah,
And if I lose this experience, my brain is not going to remember this experience,
yeah,
right? And if you, there's nothing good and bad. Good and bad is created in our head. Good and bad is a very perspective thing for individual and groups, culturally, emotionally, physically, geographically. What is good? It's just our anticipation of it.
yeah.
So if we just stop doing that one thing and start experiencing right now in the present what we are doing, to your point, that's magic.
You know what you got me thinking about? You got me thinking about, so every morning I have a nice coffee maker. I have a machine that makes really good foam. I have like this really fancy coffee I make, and I've been doing this for about a year now, and I don't even pay attention to the taste of it anymore. Like you're saying, I'm there's there's different ways that literally to drink coffee. You can
Hmm.
just pound it and be thinking about something else and be looking at your phone and you just have no idea what the experience is.
Hmm.
Or you can have the coffee, you can look at it, you can smell it, you can be focused on it, you can feel what it feels like when it first touches your tongue. And you can do that basically with everything in your life. So, for example, there's a lot of people here. I'm a trial lawyer and I've been speaking in public for 25 years, and I still get nervous before I have to give a speech. But that nervousness is that's just a label I'm putting on it. What's really
Yep.
happening, and I encourage people to do this, if you ever have performance anxiety or if
Anxiety.
you're ever
Mhm.
nervous before something, look really closely at what the physical sensations that you're having.
Yes.
It's the same thing as excitement, right? Like the same physical feelings in your body
Hmm.
that you have when you're excited and happy about something are the same notions as when you're anxious about things. And so the point is, from a present standpoint, from a physical standpoint, it's the same thing. The difference is your mind is putting one label on it instead of the other. So the practice is, if you're nervous about something or you think you're nervous about something, spend a little time focusing and being mindful on your emotions, and all of a sudden you'll realize you're not actually nervous, you're just excited. And
And
it
I'm
completely changes your
amazing.
perspective on things, right? Yeah.
That is amazing. I would add one more thing to it. That while you're doing absolutely, that's exactly what my advice. The only thing I would add to that, brand, is don't think about the output.
Yeah.
Think about the experience you're going to have. Think about the story you're going to tell. Think about the impact you're going to make, whether you're a leader, speaker, whoever you are, right? Think about the outcome. Stop thinking about outcome.
So in other words, what you're saying is, don't think about the things that I historically think about, like, am I going to remember what to say? Are the words,
Right.
is my mouth going to work? Am I going to forget how to speak English? Literally, I can find my brain going, am I going to get up there, start sweating, forget what I was going to say,
Uh,
collapse, be embarrassed? And I have 25 years of data that proves without any doubt that none of that stuff is going to happen to me, because it has never happened before. And yet, if I'm not mindful about it, that's the story that my brain seems to want to tell me. And like you said, the point is you can completely change your experience in the present just by having a little distance between what your brain is doing, feeding you all these thoughts,
right.
and what's actually happening in the present moment. And there's a
So
big
let me,
difference between those two.
yes, absolutely. So becoming an observer, that's what I say. Let me give you a good example that just happened today. Just
Yeah.
today, before the show. Um, I have a book that is international bestseller. So the previous company I used to work for, Tony Wandron, he's my CEO of the company, one of my mentors. So I went to give the book to him because I'll be traveling next couple of weeks. So I didn't want him to lose to get the book. But here is a result what happens if you are a presence, if you have that power of presence in day to day. I worked with them for what, 4 years. Every single person I looked in their eyes, they had sparkle, right? They had smile. There was not a single person. They're new people, they don't know me, but they have heard about me,
Yeah.
right? But every single person that I have touched there, they stopped what they're doing, come out to hug me. Why? Not because I have any magic, because when I was with them, I was present every moment with them,
Yeah.
right? Every conversation I would have with them, either before the conversation or after the conversation, I would ask them with me, even my boss, I'll ask them to take a deep breath and just make sure what we discussed and we remember that.
I'm having a dinner tonight with a dear friend of mine, a business dinner. and I'm going to do this before we start dinner. This is really this is a great. I love this technique. This is really really good stuff. I want to ask you a couple. We've been going for almost. I told you 30 to 45 minutes, and I figured we'd go a little longer. Do you have a couple more minutes you can
Yeah,
go?
I have 2 hours blocked for you.
Okay, so I want to ask you a couple very deep questions about
Sure.
meditation. So we've been talking about some of the practical applications of mindfulness, some techniques people can use. Let's go, if you don't mind, I want to go a little bit deeper on two things. Okay.
Hmm.
The first thing I want to go a little bit deep on is this idea of the observer. Okay.
Hmm.
The second thing I want to go a little bit deeper on is a realization that I had. So a couple of years ago, I decided, normally I meditate 10, 15 minutes a day, something like that. I decided I was going to go 30 minutes minimum per day for 6 straight months. And I got some really deep insights. And one of those insights was this idea of the observer. Okay. I want to know what you think the observer is, if anything. So, in other words, what I'm for people that don't deeply meditate, the meditators will know what I'm talking about. But when you really focus your mind, when you really get into deep meditation, sometimes you'll have a realization that all of these thoughts are they're just not you, and there's something outside of these thoughts, or some, I don't know the right word to use, but there is an observer there.
Yes.
And I've searched for that observer, and this is the second observation. I've searched for that observer, and there have been times, and I'm talking about 5 seconds, okay, like
Hmm.
as fast as you can imagine, where I've had this realization that there is maybe no observer either. And of course, the second you realize, so one of the practices in meditation is you can focus your mind on like your breathing, or you can focus it on a candle, or you can focus it on a thought. And this is a little bit advanced, then you can turn your attention back on attention itself. So there's a way to meditate where you can be really focused on something external, and then you can refocus that attention back on attention itself. And I'll have these experiences where I'll realize that there's nothing there. Like there's this idea that there's this pilot in your head running the show is just a construct of your brain. And a lot of people hear that and they think, well, that means I don't exist. That's kind of scary, but it's actually the most liberating thing you can possibly experience. So tell us, kind of on a deeper level, as somebody who's practiced with lamas, when people experience that lack of observer, or they experience that observer, how do you view that from your perspective?
So I'll give you examples. I mean, this is an awesome question, and I when I work with people one on one, I the first thing I tell them is challenge anything you don't understand, or you don't believe in, or you don't trust, because only then I can tell you how to manifest it. So I was having a coffee at Starbucks with a new client of mine. He was not sold on the whole program, but I knew that he was going through a lot of problem personally, emotionally. Um, he just had a big breakup, very 30 years long marriage breakup, 2 kids. Anyway, when I sat down with him and he said that I just cannot focus on anything, I don't know what to say. And I just kept my coffee. He's sitting across each other. And I said, okay, give me, if you trust me for 60 seconds, I'll show the magic. He said, okay, let's do it. I said, okay, first, be honest to yourself. Close your eyes and breathe. Focus where the air is going through your nostril, filling your body, coming out of your nostril. When you do the second breath, because your eyes are closed, what happens is when your eyes are closed, you shut down one sense of your brain out of the 5 senses, right? So the brain frequency is not going to stop. The moment you close your eyes and close down your visionary senses, it is going to activate some other sense more so that it comes to that 100% natural load. Then I say, okay, now that in 2 breaths, you're focusing on your breathing. So the breathing part is going, your sensation is there. You close your eyes. Now your brain is looking for where to add on, from where to add on the information. I want you to
Right.
focus on your ear now. 30 seconds. Just focus on it as you're breathing. Keep breathing. You have to keep breathing, keep focusing on that. Now focus on your ear. And in 30 seconds, said, okay, how many sound, different voices can you hear right now? He opened his eyes with tears. And he's like, how is it possible? And then it was gone. He said, how is it possible? And in 1 minute, I could hear 8 different conversations in this hall,
Unbelievable.
right? What people don't understand is mind. I said this before, mind is already full. You have to become observer to be able to tap into the intelligence of that. I have been in data analytics 25 years in my career, right? I've built my career on analytics. Just like 80% of leaders make decision and then try to find data to justify it. We live our life without experience and then try to justify that something is wrong. No, it is not wrong. You were just not present there,
Yeah.
right? Now, meditative state. What is meditative state? Very simplistically, becoming observer at that high level is the feeling of nobody. It's not nobody, no body.
Yeah.
What does it mean? You have closed your eyes, your visionary senses are down, you are focusing on your breath, and you're forcing the brain to stop. And because you're sitting, you're not touching anything, so there's no new sensation after 2 minutes in your hand, right? You're not eating anything, there's no smell, or one constant smell is coming, there's nothing to taste. Now brain is panicking that, oh my God, this guy has shut down 3 senses out of 5. Now you can use the brain to activate your prefrontal cortex. That is going to synthesize, analyze everything that brain is capturing. That is why you start having those realizations, right? These are life hacks,
Yeah. Have you ever
right?
done a sensory deprivation tank? Ever
I
done a
have.
float tank?
Yep.
So
Uh,
I haven't done one in a few years, but I tell you, so a sensory deprivation tank, for people that don't know, is a completely pitch black,
mhm,
normally a very small room with water in it that's basically the same temperature as the temperature on your skin. It's filled with saline or salt, so you float on the top without trying. There's no noise in there.
mhm,
You can't see anything. You can't feel anything because after a little while, your body stops moving. So
mhm,
you really have no input at all. And the first couple of times I did this thing, I did it for an hour at a time. It was a little bit difficult, although I had meditated for 5 years before that. So I basically spent the time meditating. But it was amazing because I'm lying there and I realized, oh my gosh, the muscles in my forearms and my chin are so tense. And all of a sudden, they just relaxed. I had been walking around saying for months with a clenched jaw and tight forearms, and I didn't even realize it. I'll tell you the other thing I realized when I was in this was 3 or 4 years ago. I was going through some kind of challenging things professionally. I realized that I was walking around every day with a frown on my face, like all the time,
that's awesome,
and so were most other people.
right?
And so I put a little reminder on my phone every morning that says smile. So I would remember to try to walk around most of the time instead of with a frown on my face, with a little bit of a not goofy smile, but just a little bit of a more positive look. But the point is without stopping all of these inputs, the visual input, like you talk about, the auditory
Mhm.
input, the tactile input, your brain is so busy processing all these inputs that it's impossible to realize some of these things until you shut down some of these inputs, which is the whole point of mindfulness, I think, or the one of the
It
major
is.
points of mindfulness.
Yeah. So, I'll give you a classical example. You have been doing meditation, so you understand how to center yourself on your breath and try to collect what you want to collect, right? For a lot of, I would say 90% people that I speak with and I train have no experience in meditation. They even don't believe meditation. So, like I told you, I give them this minor things to do so they can start understanding where their head is, where their brain is. But one thing I do is, and try this next time when you're sitting down for meditation or when you're having a cup of coffee in the morning. Maybe you already have experience in the morning. No notion, no motion, right? This is another tactics or hack I give people. What does it mean? Shut down or get away from any digital device, first of all, right? No books, nothing. No notion, no motion. I want you to stop your body's motion. Sit down, stand, one posture, one way, most comfortable, lie down, no problem. Your eyes have to be open.
Interesting.
I'm doing just the reverse. Like I gave the hack that you close some of the senses and the brain starts finding where to get the information from. This is the opposite of that. To show you how loud your brain is, right? Sit down or do whatever. Just take any posture. Sit down, lie down, stand, whatever. No movement of your body. And I don't want to have any note. I just want you to look at the wall or look at the cloud or look at a tree. Just one, because just continuous broad, far away from you. And I challenge people to do that with me online for 10 minutes. Just like you and I are sitting. I'll just ask them, give me your palm, show me something that your palm is not touching any phone or anything. I just want to make sure. And just sit down quietly with me for 10 minutes without saying anything. Look in my eyes, do whatever you want. I'm going to just look at this camera like this. I'll just sit like this. Do that for 10 minutes. Your perspective of your life will change.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, it will. It absolutely will. I've found, so what I try to do when I do a formal meditation, I sit on a meditation cushion, is I try not to move for 10 minutes while I'm meditating. And at first, and I think for people that are kind of novice meditators, you'll relate to this. You have all these, like, your brain starts searching for parts of your body that are uncomfortable and you have to move, and like your brain wants to do something, like your brain wants, whether you need to do it or not. But if you can be, here's a good example. I have a infrared sauna, and a lot of the time I like to meditate inside the sauna.
Oh,
And
wow.
what'll happen is sweat will start dripping down my face, and my first, without even thinking about it, reaction is to wipe it away. Right? And if you can sit there for 10 minutes and watch your brain tell you, hey, wipe that piece of sweat away from your forehead, and not, if you realize that you're thinking about it, you won't do it. But what it does is it teaches me how much of my actions are completely unconscious. I don't even think
Unconscious.
about,
Mhm,
I've got an itch.
mhm.
I mean, like, imagine sitting down in meditation for 10 minutes, and the first 30 seconds, you start getting this really big itch on your nose. I challenge you. Can you sit there for the next 9 minutes and 30 seconds and not scratch it?
Right. So this is a awesome, awesome, awesome point that you brought up, right? So yes, I was fortunate to get trained by a lama. I have been doing that for 4 decades now. I was blessed to come up with these ideas of micro practices that I can infuse with people. But I also happen to be an engineer from trade, engineer, science student from trade. So anything that I see, I try to connect back to what is the science on this, right? So the example that you gave, the reason it is said that when you start meditating, and not even meditating, forget meditating, the moment you start living your life in the present mindfully, you don't have to be present 24 hours in a day right now. Start with 1 minute. Start practicing that 6 times a day. They said that, or we say that this activity, mindfulness or meditation, changes you at a cellular level,
Yeah.
right? Why? So human body is one of the best engineering device on earth. Brain doesn't work, but every single cell in your body has its own brain, its own memory, not brain,
Yeah.
memory. A good example is you gave the moment the drop comes through your head, your hand goes to wipe it. Your brain
Yeah.
did not even intervene in that. It was your forehead that realized those drops and asked your other cells to come and help.
Yeah.
Think about it. Think
Yeah.
about it. I tell people to do the
Yeah.
experiment. Next time you have a candle in front of you, you touch that. I want you to look at your timer on a nanosecond basis. It takes about 14 to 18 nanoseconds for your brain to react before you after your skin burns,
Yeah.
right? So when you start doing what you just said, I challenge you for next 9 minutes, 30 seconds. You don't do it, what you're doing, you are training your not only your brain, your cells
Yeah.
to not react to them. So you're rewiring your entire brain, your entire cellular being to be the best of what you have.
Have you heard that is absolutely amazing, and I agree with you 100%. Have you heard the science behind how your gut biome is basically a kind of another brain in your system? And so there's a lot of science that's come out that says that you have basically bacteria in your belly, your gut biome, and that drives a lot of your decision making. And it sounds crazy, but think when you think about it, people have been
Mhm,
talking about a gut feeling, or what does your gut tell you, or your instinct. And if you meditate or you're mindful about that, what you find, just like you're saying, is when certain things occur, certain thoughts happen, you can feel it in your stomach. Like you're
mhm.
literally physically feel your gut biome or your stomach thinking. You know what I mean? It's amazing. Like,
It is. It is.
why is
So,
why is it? Let me ask you this thing: why is it that I can walk into a maybe accidentally walk into a dangerous part of Houston,
mhm.
and without thinking about it consciously, my gut tightens up a little bit, my vision gets a little bit sharper. Like, it's your body, like you said, it's literally the cells in your body thinking for you, which is
Oh my God.
absolutely amazing to think about, right?
Yeah. So now we are getting into some very serious scientific and spiritual philosophy at the same time. So what is the science behind it? So gut bacteria produces neurotransmitters. The main ones are serotonin, dopamine, and GABA, right? Serotonin, about 90% of your serotonin, which is feel good chemical, is produced in your gut. Okay. You are in autopilot and running in fight and flight mode. So, like I said earlier, if your amygdala is active, you're running in fight and flight mode, rest of your body shuts down because it preserves energy, thing that has survival mode. So your serotonin, your dopamine, your GABA that is supposed to be natural thing in your body is not coming out, not getting excreted. That first leads to metabolism and weight regulation issues. It leads to cardiovascular health issues. It leads to skin issues. It leads to mental health issues. The gut feel piece that you said, right? Imbalance in gut bacteria because we are forcing our body not to use and the resources and be natural. It gives you that impulse, fight and flight every time it comes in a situation that is new to you. You mentioned smell. When you smell that, your brain, there's a new smell. If you had those chemicals excreting at natural level, your brain would just observe that smell and think about what to do with it. And 80% of our immune system is maintained by your gut. So by running in autopilot, we are shutting down 80% of our immune system. And then we come in a situation, somebody standing in the dark, we panic. Or that smell comes, we panic. We have that gut thing. We go in a meeting, and when we are not prepared, our brain is saying we are not prepared, not prepared, not. You are in fight and flight mode. That happy serotonin is not, that feel good thing is not in your body,
Yeah.
right? So when you start meditating, what happens is you are just stopping your amygdala to work. The moment your amygdala stops working, the brain releases all the resources for rest of the body to work, right?
Nice.
The moment it's like, let's say there is a war going on, right? What will the government do? The government is going to bring all the resources just to take care of the nation, to protect the nation, right? Nothing is happening, everything is an emergency, right? But the moment you let it down, then you have all the resources that rest of the people can use. So think about your body like that. When you have your amygdala on autopilot, the brain is saying you are in a war. But there is nothing. It's just made up war in your brain.
Yeah.
All you have to do is take 3 deep breaths to break that cycle,
Yeah.
right? The moment you do that, 3 things that you will observe, and I'm sure you have observed this. You said one couple of things earlier, the realization that you have when you meditate, right? The science behind that is when you meditate, you strengthen your vagus nerve, right? That is the highway of communication between your brain and gut,
Nice.
right? And
The
when
third
that happens,
eye.
but it's not even third eye. It's not even, see, this is the beauty of it. The third eye is when, but you will not get to the third eye till your vagus nerve is 100% active. Because think about this way. Let's go back to that war thing. If my amygdala is coming out of the war zone, what are the places where typically scientifically your brain should release the resources? Your immune system, number
Yeah.
one. 80% of immune system is in gut, right? The moment you do that, now you start excreting those happy chemicals in your body, right? That gives you peace. When you do deep breathing, you simulate that vagus nerve, improving the gut and brain communication, right? There's a whole study and practice behind it, right? Um, One of the things that folks can do, even start people who are novices and they don't understand meditation. One of the things they can do, very simple thing. Next time you drink a glass of water or a coffee, any liquid, even alcohol. I've not tried with alcohol, but I've tried with everything else. When you have that next drink, water or something, take 4 intentional deep breaths, right? And drink that water or coffee and feel it going into your gut. It is a fantastic feeling emotionally. You
Yeah.
try it today itself.
Yeah.
First time you do that, you actually will feel the whole mechanism in your body, how the water is going. Works best with water because there's no temperature differential in your system, right? Um, the other thing is diaphragmic breathing. If you can do diaphragmic breathing, what that is you expand your belly when you breathe in and suck your belly when you breathe out. If you do that 10 times, again, the science is that you're challenging your amygdala. There's no war, I'm controlling it, and your frontal cortex come into play. These are some very simple things people can start doing tomorrow.
This is great stuff. What do you tell people? Because I'm sure you've had this before. Like, you deal with a lot of executives, a lot of high powered people, a lot of very ambitious, driven
Mhm.
people. What do you tell the person that says, "I want to be I'm going to be the best meditator ever. I'm going to have awakening really fast."
Mhm.
Like, in other words, they make it a competition. What do you tell people that have that kind of mentality towards
I,
meditation or mindfulness? I'm going to be
I
the
mean, the,
most mindful of anybody.
no, I
I'm
get that
more
all the time.
mindful than everybody. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I get that all the time. So for them, I do 2 things. One is I have them do a quick 3-minute journaling for me, right? And 3 minutes, I'll put the timer on. I'll ask them to journal for 3 minutes. What do you have to journal? I want you to journal when you say you're going to be the best mindful person on earth, what you're trying to get out of it. If you can articulate in less than 3 minutes what you want out of being mindful, you already are mindful,
Nice.
right? So that's first
Nice.
exercise, test where they are. The second one I then tell them is just raise your palm like this and keep it like this for next 3 minutes without shaking. You can only do that when you're not focusing on your palm because your eyes are open. You lift your hand, so your brain is expecting something to touch your hand, but you're not touching anything. See? So
Nice.
you can do this and your hand not shaking on, and look at that. Keep looking at those. Don't take away your eyes. Though if you close your eyes, it's easy. Keep looking at this, what you're doing. Your hand will start shaking. Why?
Yeah. I,
Because your brain, you see that? Because
yeah,
your
yeah.
fingers will start. Yeah, your brain is saying, no, no, no. I'm expecting something on top of that hand to feel. You're not giving me complete information. This is data scarcity in the brain.
That's awesome. I'll tell you one of the paradoxes I've found in meditation. Like I said, I've had a couple experiences of no self, and what
Mhm.
that means is basically the ego disappears and you're just present. But if you seek that out, you'll never get it. Like if you're trying, like, because the second your brain comes
Mhm.
online. So the way I experienced it is I turned attention back on itself. Suddenly everything was, it's hard to describe, but like there was no chatter, there was
Mhm.
no Brian in the head. It was just utter and complete calm. And then suddenly my brain started thinking about it and it disappeared.
Right.
So the point is when you seek it out too hard, it runs away. The other thing that I think is fairly profound about meditation is, like you just said, uh, you're already free. Like we're already awakened. We
Mhm.
just we don't see it yet,
Right.
and that's why, like, the famous people, the famous prophets and stuff, we call them seers,
Mm.
seer,
Mhm.
people that have seen
Seen
through,
through it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
seen through this illusion. So there is actually, you can become awakened immediate
Mm.
instantaneously. If you can realize, once this realization happens, you're already free. You don't, in other words, I guess
Mm.
what I'm telling people is you don't have to go to India for 5 years
No.
and meditate
No.
8 hours a day in order to
Mm-mm.
in order to get the benefits of this
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah, Brian, so I get that question more than often is I get that I'm going to do this 6 times a day thing that you tell me, but at the same time, it's going to take me some time to get there. Is there anything that I can do right now that I can start expediting my experience?
Yeah,
Right? So this world is about instant coffee. Everything is made instant. So gratification is also instant. So people want instant result. That goes back to my point that I was struggling to come up with micro practices. So there is a yogic practice called Kumbhaka. In when I learned that when we do proper Kumbhaka practice, it is sitting down. We are usually sitting, and then you take a deep breath, exhale, and then just stop your entire body. Stop, breathe for as much as you can. Then you slowly inhale, right? So when you exhale, you just pull your entire stomach inside and just sit there like that. And then slowly exhale. Now, when we do it from a yogic standpoint, there are a couple of other things we do. That's called locks. But the micro practice I have found, and it's phenomenally, and I have before I shared with anyone, I discussed with my lama, and he is so ecstatic. I mean, he's so happy that I am able to take his training and put into this micro things. No matter who you are, no matter what you're doing. If you want to start experiencing mindful presence, just do this exercise. Driving, sitting, cooking, running, walking, doing podcast, whatever. Your regular breath when you're not talking, stop it. Just stop your breath.
yeah,
Exhale and stop your breath. And then inhale slowly and gradually increase that speed of slowing down. What you're holding, just remember, you exhale, empty your stomach, and then hold. And then slowly inhale and can go back to your natural self. I do that 3 or 4 times. When I'm driving, sometimes I drive from Jacksonville to Atlanta. It's 4.5 hour drive or 5 hour drive. I just do that. I'm listening to music and just doing kumbhaka.
Nice. Have you ever heard of Douglas Harding and the whole no head idea on having no head?
What
So for
about it?
people, for people that aren't familiar with it, Douglas Harding was I think a British guy who got into Eastern meditation and kind of developed his own system. And essentially, he makes the observation that you don't actually ever see yourself, like there's a giant missing. It's like your head is not there.
Hmm.
Like you can see other people, you can see other things around you, but your experience is this, generally speaking, is this observer observing outwards. And like
Yes.
there's, when you turn it back around, there's nothing. It's just the same idea as no self. When you turn it back around, there's nothing there to see.
It's a.
Saying I've
Mhm.
kept you a lot longer than I really intended, but like I told you at the beginning of the conversation before we went on the air, this is something, mindfulness meditation, the science of this, how effective it is in relieving suffering and giving people clarity is just
So can
fascinating. Yeah,
can
yeah,
I
yeah,
just can I just add one thing on that Douglas
absolutely,
Harding piece?
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
the whole idea that he has, I think it was the Zen of rediscovery or something like that. The Zen of rediscovery for obvious, something like that. His practice, what he has done, like I just shared 2 or 3 practices out of that concept. So the practice that he has, the realization that he has, he tried to bring Eastern philosophies to Western experimental inquiries.
Yeah.
So if you think about all the micro practices I'm talking about, it comes from that. But the basis that he learned from was practices of Zen Buddhism and Advanced Vedanta, right? That's what I learned from Lama. And I'm just trying to figure out a way. I've read Douglas a few times, and actually it has given me inspiration of coming up with my own micro practices that I can share, things that I believe. And before I share something, I try myself. And I have got a following, spiritual following of 200 people. I give them that, they try it, they see the benefit, then I start giving to the public.
Have you ever just one more quick thing. This fascinates me. Have you ever meditated and actually put your attention somewhere else in the room? Like I find it, so sometimes I'll meditate and I'll put my attention in like the top right corner of the meditation room and look back at myself. And
Mhm.
like, how is that, how is that even possible? It's like you can take your consciousness and put it outside of your body. I mean, to me, that's like as close to a miracle as
Mhm.
we get. So how is it that we take, literally have our consciousness in a
Mhm.
different part of the room or a different part of the universe, looking back at where our physical body is?
So the science behind that is two different concepts there. So one concept is about visualization, right? We can, with the amount of, like I said, our brain is never stopping. It's always capturing all the senses, all the information, everything. If we start focusing on different parts of our body, and by the time you go through half of your body parts, including your fingers and everything else, your frontal cortex gets into action very quickly and start becoming that observer. Because you're asking, okay, what is my finger doing? What is my this doing? You are now,
Yeah,
instead of letting the brain run you, you are running the brain. Now, brain has all the contextual information about your surrounding, the warmth, the air, the smell, that even you don't have in autopilot,
yeah,
right? So when you do that, you are actually using your frontal cortex to look into every single data point that it has captured and show you what it looks like. The higher level of this meditation is where Swami Vivekananda, I'm his follower too. In Chicago, when he gave the speech, an Advanta big speech back in the day, there was a streak of light that went out, swimming pool next door. It's an actual incident. A small kid was drowning in the swimming pool next door, and his mother, the kid's mother, actually saw a beam of light come out, lift the son out of the pool. and she followed the light, and the light came into Swami Vivekananda, right? Now, I cannot even imagine getting to that level of presence. He's talking at the same time, his brain is so active, his frontal cortex is so active, but it is capturing senses even beyond that hall,
Yeah.
right? And I challenge people to put your senses just in what you're doing right now. Can we start there?
Yeah. Singh,
That's
what a
beautiful.
great conversation, my friend. This has truly been a great joy. I've spent 95% of my time with a smile on my face. I felt very, frankly, connected to you, and it's just been awesome. Tell people where they can find you online.
So they can always find me either on LinkedIn, or they can find me at Singh Power of Coach, singleadership.com. Now, SINGH. The way to remember is you sing a song is SING. Just know this Singh has an edge to him. So it's SINGH.
Sing Edge, SINGH Edge, EDGE.
No,
Great having you on,
SIN.
my friend.
It's just SINGH leadership.com. Hey,
SING Edge. Yeah,
I'll give you two gifts. One, I'll send you invite to take the purpose factor assessment. It'll be a joy to walk you through, and then we can see how you want to spread it to your listeners if you like it and you get engaged. The second is, like I said, every interaction that I have, I want to make sure that it is transformational. So next time if Singh and Brand does not get to meet ever and talk ever, I'll give you a gift that you will never forget.
I love it. Let's do it. I appreciate that, my friend.
So every human being, people do disk analysis, all this different kind of analysis, right? I'm a scientific student too, but I always try to figure out ways that people will always remember. So take a 2 by 2 matrix. On the top left is eagle, top right is owl, bottom right is parrot, and bottom left is dove. Eagle, owl, dove, parrot. We all have those intensities in us. What does that mean? For leaders who are listening, you will always meet people who have different personality and different expectations. Eagles are the leaders that you have to connect in less than 10 seconds. For them, the elevator pitch was designed, right? Owls are people who have analysis paralysis. No matter what information you give, is never enough for them. Parrots have all the colors. These are the people who cannot think unless you spread their wings. You cannot see all the colors unless the parrot spreads the wing. So you need to get them into talking. And dove are the people who always want to, the first question will be, how does it impact a human? So next time you are in a meeting and you have to capture attention in a boardroom, take deep breath. Your first goal is to get attention of eagles. Connect with the parrots and let the parrots start talking and giving story and feeding the information to owl. So you are not wasting your energy feeding the owl.
I love it.
Instead, you connect with the dove to show the importance to other people around of the project, and keep the parrot talking story, 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 because they will expand. Every time in any board meeting, I had never had a failure just because of this concept.
That's awesome. You know where I'm going to use that? You know where I'm going to use that immediately is as a trial lawyer. I have to pick juries, which means I have to ask a panel of like 60 people questions. And I'm going to use that to identify the eagles, the doves, the parrots, and the owls. And I'm going to get the parrots to start talking. That's amazing. I love it. Thank
And
you.
less than 3 minutes, Brian, you will start compartmentalizing every person you know in your life into those boxes.
Thank you, my friend.
You're welcome. Live in the present, live in joy. Everybody should be
Love
blessed.
it.
Thank you.
Love it.